When God decides to move in your life, nothing can stand in His way. No obstacle, no setback, no enemy, no force of darkness can stop what He has ordained for you. You may look around and see barriers, barriers of lack, barriers of fear, barriers of past mistakes, barriers that seem impossible to break. But let me remind you today, the God you serve is a God who makes a way where there is no way. He's the God who parts seas, who moves mountains, who shatters chains, and who lifts His people out of impossible situations. Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough and all you see are walls closing in. Maybe every time you take a step forward, something pushes you 2 steps back. Maybe you're feeling stuck thinking, God, how can I get past this? How will I ever reach what you have for me? But I want to tell you today, that barrier in front of you is not permanent. It may look intimidating, it may seem immovable, but it's no match for the power of God. Throughout history, God has been in the business of breaking barriers. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them, it looked like there was no escape. It looked like their journey was over. But God stepped in, stretched out His hand, and made a way. The waters parted, and His people walked through on dry ground. That wasn't just a miracle, it was a statement. A statement that no force in this world can stop the plans of God. A statement that no barrier, no obstacle, no enemy can hold back the one whom God has chosen to push forward. You see, the enemy wants you to believe that your barriers are too big, that your past is too messy, that your mistakes have disqualified you. He wants you to accept defeat. But I came to tell you today, God is not intimidated by your obstacles. He is not limited by your circumstances. He is the God who turns walls into doorways, who transforms roadblocks into stepping stones, who takes the very thing meant to stop you and uses it to launch you forward. Think about the story of Jericho. The Israelites were standing before a city with massive walls built to keep them out. From a human perspective, those walls were unbreakable. But God gave them an instruction. March around the city, keep praising, keep believing. On the 7th day, when they lifted their voices, the walls didn't just crack, they didn't just weaken, they collapsed. The very thing that was meant to stop them became the thing that proved the power of their God. And that same God is with you right now. You may be facing walls in your life, walls of opposition, walls of doubt, walls of fear. But if you keep marching, if you keep believing, if you keep trusting, those walls will fall. The barrier in front of you is only temporary. It may seem strong, but it cannot stand against the Word of God. So don't get discouraged when things don't seem to be moving. Don't give up when the breakthrough doesn't come on your timeline. Sometimes God allows the barrier to remain for a moment, not to stop you, but to show you His power when He brings it down. The enemy thought the cross was the end for Jesus. He thought the grave was the final barrier, that death had won. But 3 days later, the stone was rolled away and Jesus walked out victorious. What the enemy meant as a barrier, God turned into the greatest breakthrough in history. That same resurrection power is at work in your life. God is still moving stones. He is still breaking chains. He is still making a way. So don't you dare let that barrier intimidate you. Don't let it make you shrink back in fear. You serve a God who has never lost a battle, a God whose word does not return void, a God who is faithful to complete what He has started in you. Right now, He is already working behind the scenes. He is already shifting things in your favor. You may not see it yet, but in the spiritual realm, the walls are already shaking. The breakthrough is already in motion. And when the time is right, that barrier will fall. That obstacle will be removed. That door will open. And you will step into everything that God has prepared for you. Get ready. The barrier in front of you is about to break. Life has a way of throwing setbacks at us. You try your best, you pray, you push forward, and just when you think you're making progress, something knocks you back. Doors close, opportunities slip away, people walk out on you, and you're left wondering, God, why is this happening? But let me tell you something today. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. What looks like a delay is often divine preparation. What feels like rejection is often God's redirection. And what seems like the end of the road is just the beginning of something greater. You may have lost something. You may have faced disappointments that shook you to your core. But I want you to know that God is not finished with you yet. He sees the pain. He sees the struggles. He sees the things that didn't work out. And He is saying, don't give up. I'm setting you up for something better. Look at Joseph. His own brothers betrayed him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. From there he was falsely accused, thrown into prison, and forgotten. If anyone had a reason to feel like life was unfair, it was Joseph. If anyone had a reason to think that God had abandoned him, it was him. But what Joseph didn't realize in those moments was that every setback was positioning him for something greater. Every disappointment was moving him closer to his destiny. And in one moment, God turned it all around. The same Joseph who was once a prisoner became second in command over all of Egypt. The same people who betrayed him had to come to him for help. What the enemy meant for harm, God used for good. That's how God works. What looks like a dead end to you is just a detour to Him. The enemy may think he's stopping you, but he's only setting you up for a testimony. That closed door, that missed opportunity, that painful loss, it's not the end of your story. It's just a chapter. And God is about to flip the page. Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough, but instead of moving forward, it feels like life is pulling you back. You're wondering why things keep getting harder. But let me give you a new perspective. Think of a bow and arrow. Before an arrow is released, it has to be pulled back. The further it is pulled back, the greater the force behind it when it's finally let go. And some of you have been feeling like life is pulling you back, like everything is against you. But what you don't realize is that God is about to release you into something greater than you ever imagined. That pullback is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to launch you. David was just a shepherd boy. Nobody saw anything special in him. But God had a plan. He was anointed to be king, yet after his anointing, he went back to the fields, back to tending sheep, back to a place that didn't look like the palace. It didn't make sense. If he was chosen, why wasn't he promoted immediately? Because God was preparing him. Before he could face the throne, he had to face the lion and the bear. Before he could defeat Goliath, he had to learn to trust God in the wilderness. And when the moment came, David was ready. His setbacks weren't wasted. They were the very things that qualified him for his destiny. That's the kind of God you serve. He doesn't waste your pain. He doesn't let your struggles go in vain. He takes every tear, every disappointment, every failure, and He weaves it into His plan. When you feel like you've been overlooked, when it seems like nothing is working out, when doors keep shutting in your face, remember, God is setting you up. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that every no, every delay, every heartbreak was leading you to something better. The relationship that ended was making space for the right one. The job that didn't work out was setting you up for something greater. The struggle you faced was preparing you for the blessing ahead. God is a master at turning things around, and if you stay faithful, if you keep believing, if you refuse to quit, you will see His plan unfold in your life. So don't get stuck in disappointment. Don't let your setback make you bitter. Keep moving forward, because what's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. The enemy thought he was stopping you, but he was only setting you up. Get ready. Your comeback is on the way. Faith is the key that unlocks the supernatural. It's what moves mountains. It's what opens doors. It's what turns impossible situations into testimonies. Without faith, you stay stuck in the natural, bound by limitations, trapped by circumstances. But when you dare to believe, when you step beyond what you see and trust in what God has spoken, you invite heaven to move on your behalf. So many people miss their breakthrough, not because God isn't able, but because they don't believe He will. They look at their situation and let fear decide their future. They listen to the voices of doubt, the opinions of others, the evidence that says it's never going to happen, and they stop believing. But I came to tell you today, faith is not about what you see. It's about who you know your God to be. He is the God of miracles, the God of the impossible, the God who speaks and causes things to shift. And if you can hold on to faith, no barrier will be able to stand in your way. Look at Abraham. God told him he would be the father of many nations. Yet for years, nothing happened. His wife Sarah was barren. Time was running out. And from every natural perspective, the promise seemed impossible. But Scripture says Abraham did not waver in unbelief, but was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God. In other words, when everything told him it wasn't going to happen, he chose to believe anyway. And because of his faith, God fulfilled his promise. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. The kind of faith that says, I don't care what it looks like, I trust what God said. The kind of faith that stands firm even when circumstances scream otherwise. Faith doesn't deny reality, it just refuses to let reality have the final say. You may be in a tough situation right now, but faith says God is bigger than this. You may have heard bad news, but faith says this report is not the final word. You may feel like nothing is changing, but faith says God is working behind the scenes. The enemy's greatest weapon is doubt, because he knows if he can get you to doubt, he can get you to settle. He wants you to stop expecting, stop believing, stop hoping. He'll whisper lies like you've prayed for too long. Nothing is happening. Maybe this is just the way it is. But that's when you have to fight back with faith. Faith is not passive, it's aggressive. It takes hold of God's promises and refuses to let go. It declares victory even before it sees it. It says, I will not quit because I know my God is faithful. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? For 12 years she suffered. Doctors couldn't help her. People gave up on her. But she heard about Jesus and she said to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. She didn't wait for an invitation. She didn't ask for permission. She pressed through the crowd and grabbed hold of her miracle. And in that moment, Jesus turned and said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Not her effort, not her connections, not her background, her faith. That same faith is what God is looking for in you, the kind of faith that refuses to give up, the kind of faith that keeps pressing even when the crowd is in the way, the kind of faith that reaches out and grabs hold of the promise. Because when you have that kind of faith, God responds. He is moved by faith, he is drawn to faith. And when he sees someone who believes, someone who refuses to be shaken, someone who stands on his word no matter what, he releases his power. Maybe you're in a situation that feels impossible. Maybe you've been waiting for a breakthrough and it seems like nothing is happening. Maybe you've been praying for years and you're starting to wonder if God even hears you. And he is working even when you can't see it, but he's waiting for your faith. He's waiting for you to stop wavering, stop doubting, stop hesitating, and fully trust him. The walls of Jericho didn't fall because the Israelites had weapons. They fell because they had faith. David didn't defeat Goliath because he was the strongest. He won because he had faith. Peter didn't walk on water because the waves were calm. He walked because he had faith. And your breakthrough will come the same way, not because everything looks perfect, not because you have all the answers, but because you choose to believe even when it doesn't make sense. God is ready to move in your life. He's ready to break barriers, open doors, and make a way where there is no way. But the question is, do you have the faith to believe for it? Because if you do, nothing can stop what God is about to do. Get ready, your faith is unlocking the miracle. Sometimes the very people who try to hold you back, the ones who count you out, the ones who think they have the power to stop your destiny, God will use them to elevate you. What they meant for harm, God will turn for your good. The opposition you're facing right now is not a sign that you're defeated. It's a sign that you're on the verge of something greater. If the enemy wasn't threatened by you, he wouldn't be fighting you. If people weren't seeing something special in you, they wouldn't be trying to push you down. But what they don't realize is that every attack, every lie, every attempt to block you is just pushing you closer to the place God has already prepared. Look at Joseph. His own brothers were jealous of him. They couldn't stand to see the favor on his life. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and thought they had erased his future. But what they didn't know was that God was using their betrayal to position Joseph for the palace. If they had never thrown him into that pit, he would have never ended up in Egypt. If he had never been falsely accused, he would have never been in prison. And if he had never been in prison, he would have never stood before Pharaoh and stepped into his destiny. The very people who tried to destroy him were the ones who unknowingly set him up for promotion. That's how God works. He will take the jealousy, the betrayal, the rejection, and instead of letting it break you, he will use it to make you. Instead of letting it destroy you, he will use it to position you. Some of you are wondering why certain people walked away, why certain doors shut, why certain opportunities never worked out. You thought it was a loss, but God is saying, I was positioning you for something better. That rejection was protection. That betrayal was preparation. The enemy thought he was stopping you, but he was only setting the stage for God to reveal his glory in your life. David understood this well. Before he ever became king, he had to face opposition from Saul. Saul saw the anointing on David's life, and instead of celebrating him, he tried to kill him. He chased him, hunted him, did everything in his power to stop him. But what did God do? He used Saul's attacks to prepare David for his throne. Every time David had to run, he learned how to trust God more. Every time he was attacked, he learned how to fight battles in the Spirit. By the time he became king, he wasn't just anointed, he was equipped. The very things that were meant to stop you are the things God is using to strengthen you. The people who tried to push you down, the ones who doubted you, the ones who tried to block you, they are actually a part of the process. When you understand this, you stop getting discouraged when people turn against you. You stop getting frustrated when things don't go the way you planned. You realize that God is in control. Nothing happens without his permission. If someone betrayed you, if someone walked away, if someone falsely accused you, don't waste your time being bitter. Lift your head up and say, God, I trust you. If you allowed it, you're going to use it. When Jesus was betrayed by Judas, it was an accident. It wasn't a surprise to God. It was a part of the plan. Judas thought he was destroying Jesus, but he was actually helping to fulfill prophecy. Without Judas, there would be no cross. Without the cross, there would be no resurrection. And without the resurrection, there would be no victory. The greatest betrayal in history led to the greatest victory in history. That's the power of God. He takes what the enemy meant for evil and turns it for good. And that's exactly what he's doing in your life. What people meant to break you, God is using to build you. The attacks, the setbacks, the disappointments, they are not the end of your story. They are a part of the process. God is using everything, even the things that don't make sense, even the things that hurt, to push you into your purpose. So don't get discouraged. Don't let the opposition make you doubt your calling. If people are against you, it's because they see something in you. If the enemy is fighting you, it's because you're a threat. But no weapon formed against you will prosper. What was meant to stop you is going to be the very thing God uses to push you forward. Get ready. The tables are turning. Sometimes the greatest battles happen right before the breakthrough. The moment when you feel the most pressure, the most opposition, the most resistance. That's often the moment when you're closest to stepping into what God has prepared for you. But here's the key. You cannot give up. You cannot let the weight of the struggle make you forfeit the blessing that's on the other side. Too many people stop right before their breakthrough. They pray, they fight, they believe, but when the answer doesn't come as quickly as they hoped, they let frustration take over. They start thinking, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not meant to step into this. And they walk away when they were only one step away from the promise. The enemy knows he can't stop what God has for you. He doesn't have the power to cancel God's plans. But what he will try to do is wear you down so that you stop believing, so that you settle for less, so that you let go of what was already yours. If he can get you tired, if he can get you discouraged, if he can make you feel like it's never going to happen, he knows you might just quit on your own. But I came to tell you today, do not give up. Do not let go. Do not walk away from what God has promised you. You may be tired, but keep pressing. You may not see a way, but keep trusting. You may feel like nothing is changing, but hold on, because right when you think it's over, that's when God steps in. Look at Elijah. He prayed for rain after years of drought, and he sent his servant to look for a sign. The servant came back and said, I don't see anything. Elijah didn't stop praying. He sent him back again. Still nothing. 5 times, 6 times, the servant came back saying, there's no sign of rain. But Elijah refused to give up. He knew what God had spoken, and he wasn't about to quit just because he didn't see it yet. On the 7th time, the servant said, I see a cloud the size of a man's hand. That was all Elijah needed to hear. That small cloud was the beginning of an outpouring that ended the drought. And that's what faith looks like. You keep believing, you keep praying, you keep pressing, even when it doesn't look like anything is changing. Because what seems invisible to you now is already forming in the Spirit. That breakthrough is closer than you think. Think about the story of the Israelites. God promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, a place of blessing and abundance. But to get there, they had to go through the wilderness. And in that wilderness, they faced challenges, they faced delays, they faced opposition. And some of them, instead of pressing forward, started looking back. They said, maybe we should just go back to Egypt. Can you imagine? They were willing to walk away from a land of promise just because the journey got hard. That's exactly what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to get so discouraged, so weary, so frustrated that you walk away from what is already yours. But hear me today, you are too close to give up now. You have come too far to turn back. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if you weren't right at the edge of something great. The pressure means you're close. The opposition means you're stepping into something powerful. And if you just hold on a little longer, you will see the promise come to pass. When a woman is in labor, the moment of greatest pain comes right before the birth. It's in that final push that everything in her body screams to stop, to give up. But if she stops in that moment, the birth doesn't happen. It's not the time to quit, it's the time to push. And that's where some of you are right now. You're in the final stretch. You're feeling the weight of the process, the pressure of the struggle, the intensity of the battle. But I came to tell you, don't stop pushing now. Don't walk away from what God has been preparing you for. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. God is faithful. He didn't bring you this far just to leave you. He didn't put the dream in your heart just to let it die. He is a promise-keeping God. What He said He will do. What He started, He will finish. But you have to endure. You have to keep believing when it looks impossible. You have to hold on when everything in you wants to let go. Because in just a little while, the door will open, the breakthrough will come. And when it does, you will look back and realize that every tear, every struggle, every moment of waiting was worth it. Get ready. You are about to step into everything God has promised you. There comes a moment in your life when God says, enough is enough. A moment when He steps in, not just to give you strength to endure, but to bring you out of what has been holding you back. You've been pressing, you've been believing, you've been fighting, and now the shift is coming. The season of delay is ending. The barriers that have been in your way are about to break, and when God moves, nothing can stop it. Some of you have been stuck in the same battle for too long. You've been dealing with the same struggle, facing the same opposition, circling the same mountain, and wondering when things will change. But what you don't realize is that the delay was never a denial. It was never God saying no. It was God preparing the way. It was God strengthening you, building you, shaping you, so that when the breakthrough comes, you'll be ready to walk in it. Look at the Israelites when they stood before the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army was behind them, the water was in front of them, and in the natural there was no way out. But God never needed a natural way. He is the God who makes a way. He told Moses, stretch out your staff, and the waters parted. What was an impossible barrier became the very thing that led them into freedom. And here's what you need to understand. When God parts the waters, you don't hesitate, you don't question. You walk through. Some of you have been waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for all the details to make sense, waiting for the conditions to be just right. But God is saying, move now, step out now. The way is opening before you, but you have to have the faith to walk through it. The enemy will always try to convince you that you're not ready, that you need more time, that you're not qualified, that you should wait. But if you listen to those voices, you'll miss what God is doing. The Israelites could have stood there analyzing the situation, debating whether or not they should go, but they didn't. When God made a way, they moved. And because they moved, they stepped into their deliverance. That's what's happening for you. God is breaking barriers. He's opening doors. He's removing obstacles that have been in your way for years. The things that used to hold you back, the things that kept you stuck, the things that made you feel like you would never move forward, God is destroying them. And when He does, your only job is to go forward. No looking back, no second guessing, no wondering if you're worthy. Just walk into what He has already prepared for you. Too many people miss their moment because they hesitate. They let fear talk them out of what God has promised. They see the opportunity, they see the breakthrough, but instead of stepping in, they hold back. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not good enough? And because of fear, they stay where they are, never experiencing the fullness of what God had for them. But that's not going to be you. You've come too far. You've fought too hard. And God has brought you to this moment for a reason. Remember Peter? He saw Jesus walking on the water and said, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come. Jesus said one word, come. And in that moment, Peter had a choice. He could have stayed in the boat where it was safe, where it was comfortable, where everything made sense. But he didn't. He stepped out. And as long as his eyes were on Jesus, he walked on what should have drowned him. The storm didn't stop. The waves didn't disappear, but Peter walked in the middle of it because he dared to believe. That's what faith looks like. Not waiting for everything to be perfect, not waiting for all the fear to disappear, but stepping out even when you feel uncertain, even when you don't have all the answers, even when the waves are still crashing around you. And when you do, you'll find that God has already gone before you, making the impossible possible. This is your time. The chains are breaking, the barriers are falling, and God is clearing the way. But you have to move. No more waiting, no more doubting, no more letting fear rob you of what is already yours. Step forward in faith, walk into the breakthrough, because when God says it's time, nothing can stop it.